Welcome to Fan4Racing Radio. I'm Fan4Racing Sharon, and joining me is Jay Huseman and Chris Creighton. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hello.
What's up?
And we are here for our competition, CC moves, and playoff talk for our Hot Topic Sound Off episode number 2530. I didn't get it up there, but we are in episode 2530 already, guys.
Wow.
It's coming up fast, the end of the season. So let's go ahead and talk about the race this weekend at Kansas. How is the racing at Kansas for the Xfinity and Cup Series, as well as the ARCA Menards Series? And then Madera had a race with the ARCA West Series, 3-wide finish in that race. Chris, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm kind of guilty. I didn't watch much of the Xfinity race. Look, y'all, it's fatigue, right? It's driver fatigue, and I'm sorry, but when you can basically predict the outcome of the truck race and the Xfinity race, and Connor Zilisch didn't win, like that
did not.
That was, but when I flipped over to it and he led like 90% of the race. Unfortunately, I probably missed a good finish. Corey Heim, it's kind of a fatigue that's been going on with the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. And look, I'm not one that normally poo-poos on dominance. It's got to be respected and it's got to be loved when somebody can go out and do the things that these drivers are doing. But I think that right now we're just kind of in this negative, bad spot where you've got the looming lawyer stuff, NASCAR is what they're calling it. And then you have the car in the Cup Series that's actually you have the car that's not the best. I don't know, somewhere or another I just feel like maybe I've lost a little bit of interest this year into what's been going on the racetrack. Typically, and I swear to you guys, for my whole life, I've tried to sit down and watch every bit of racing that comes on the weekend. This is the first season that I could actually say that somewhere around June, July, I just have become fatigued of it. It's unfortunate because I want to come on here and I want to have my 10-10s in a row. And look, most of the time between all the stuff that I listen to throughout the week and stuff, I'm able to garner exactly what happened to these races. But somewhere or another, I feel like maybe, there's just needs to be a little extra spark to get people back involved with the with the lower series races. And as for the Cup race, it's very hard to say that I would go on a radio show and not watch the Cup races after 10, 12 years of being in the podcast world. Nothing made me roll my eyes faster than the person I'm supposed to be chatting with across from me saying that they didn't watch the race. It's like, okay, well, how are we going to talk about anything? The Cup race, you had two different worlds. You had the beginning of the race, which was cars drawn out, pit strategies and stuff like that. And then you had the second half of the race, which was, I don't know, man, one of the most exciting races I've seen of late. If anything can get that spark going back again, it's finishes like that. I know, Jay, we can't have those kind of finishes every single time, but man, when we do get them, they should be celebrated. And unfortunately, even with the outcome of what happened this weekend, we'll talk about this later on, I'm sure, is the negative reaction from the fans. I mean, can you just not ever be satisfied? So
negative Nellies.
I mean, and look, here I am starting mine off with, I probably have gotten fatigued and all because of the same old winners every week. And I get that. Like, that's negative context, and I should probably be careful myself. The one thing that I've laughed about in the past is those who get tired of talking about Danica Patrick, but we were still talking about Danica Patrick. So I don't want to be the conundrum of that. But I think all in all, through the weekend, it was good racing. Would you enlighten me? Oh yeah, it was Brandon Jones that won the Xfinity race. So good job, Brandon Jones. Like I think he was mentioned here last week. kind of the silent contender there for Joe Gibbs Racing, and now here he is. Like, boom! All of a sudden, he's blossomed, and that big yellow Menards sponsorship car that has more signage on it than I think any other Cup driver has in the entire garage. You go, Brandon Jones. You're proving where you should be at, and thank goodness somebody beat Connor Zilisch, and y'all know. Like Connor, I say Connor Zilich's name, I get a big smile on my face. I think the kid is so talented. Whoops. We're headed to a heartbreak with Connor because we know that next year is not going to be anything like this year, and it's going to be the coming to Jesus moment where you really find out, what Connor's going to be made of, how well he'll adapt. Obviously, I believe it was a late caution maybe that caused this one to get out of his hands. I can't wait to hear from one of you guys about that. But all in all, obviously, still as well, it's big race season around here. And so I actually caught like a lot of racing. It just wasn't, unfortunately, NASCAR style racing. So, but I did get to hear a little bit of Jay on the mic this past weekend. I did tune into that, and I listened to Hunt the Front down at Southern, and wherever they were racing at on Flow Racing. So I got plenty of racing. It just wasn't necessarily, and maybe that too is the grand problem that NASCAR is seeing with some rating slippage. I think that that may be something to talk about later on as well, based off of the numbers that come out from the previous race last weekend. A little bit of slippage there on some ratings. So I don't want to draw into the negative stuff tonight. I really want to keep things positive. And I think that as we get closer to the actual playoff sector where it's really going to get real, and I feel like we're getting really close on the Cup side. Like things have sped up quite quickly after this past race. And look, I mean, we were a half a turn away from Bubba Wallace being locked in to the final rounds or the next cutoff round. So yeah, that was going to be a big thing on some bingo cards if that had hit. But I wish that we could have that type of racing every weekend. The end of that Kansas race had us all on the edge of our seat. It had us all screaming at the TV. And if some of y'all didn't think that we were going to have an Austin Dillon Richmond finish all over again with Denny Hamlin trying to block 2 lanes, I think that y'all were crazy, because that was the first thing I thought. Oh my gosh, he's done put Wallace in the wall. Now he's fixing to go down and left hook Chase Elliott. As many people know, throughout my years, I've been very critical of Chase Elliott in the past. I will go ahead and give you my opinion right now. I don't like Chase, but I dislike Kyle Larson that much more. So when he was in his interview and he said how hard it is to, I can't stand him. I just ate spaghetti. I better not do that too hard. When you heard him in his interview, he was a humbled Chase Elliott. That will earn me as a fan. And I'm not saying I'm going to be a fan of him. I'm just giving you my old cockeye there. That earns respect, right? As a fan, hearing somebody say, man, do you know how hard it is to win these races? Maybe I took advantage of that a little bit earlier in my career. I'm like, praise Jesus. Chase Elliott, welcome home. Fly your airplane to work anytime you want to now, but I ain't got nothing bad to say against you, because now I believe that the route that he had to take to get back to the Chase Elliott that he was yesterday, sitting in that podium, was a lot similar to my favorite driver that's ever lived, my Dale Earnhardt Jr., who had to go through a rough spell and then get it all turned around. And he was a lot more appreciative of those wins once he went through that trivial time in his career. So kudos to Chase Elliott. Kudos for sitting there and admitting how hard it was to get back to relevance. And I look forward to maybe getting to know this guy a little bit more and actually maybe becoming a fan of him. I mean, who knows? I've done a lot of, most of the time I pull for guys who drive for Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Chase Elliott's probably been the most talented driver up till Connor Zilisch maybe to ever drive for Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Junior Motorsports. And I will pass the baton to my good friend, Mr. Jay Huseman. Huseman, what do you say, man?
Okay,
What?
Mr. Jay Huseman.
Come on, come on.
I'd like to respond to your point there, but I'm not even sure what your point was or one of the 5 million you hit on there in 10 seconds or whatever it was.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's
10
opening
minutes.
monologue. Come on.
Okay. Go, Jay.
Yeah, the racing itself, and Chris, I think you hit on it. Sharon and I were kind of talking about it as you came on while we were still backstage. To me, when we talk about the decline of NASCAR, it is the fans and the social media, because that is what's selling this. Oh, the Xfinity Series isn't exciting because it's one driver winning. The Truck Series isn't exciting because it's one driver winning everything. And first off, that driver didn't win this weekend. That's the whole point. And you talk about that exciting finish. Well, in order to get to that, you got to go through the race or the game, whatever it be. To have that overtime 68-yard field goal or whatever touchdown pass in the final seconds, you got to get through the game to get to that. You got to get through the race. And I think if fans would watch the race for themselves, not based off of what social media or whatever is selling, oh, the cars, you can't pass, this is going on, the lawsuit's going on, whatever else, that's just watch the race and enjoy it. But I don't think they do. Don't listen to the talk of, oh, NBC can't broadcast or Fox does this. Just watch the race and enjoy it. I mean, that's what kills me. I thought it was great racing in all the series. Now, the Xfinity Series race I listened to on the radio as I was as Chris mentioned, en route to, actually, I was all over the place again. Was at a college football game. That's why I was using that analogy, because that was part of that.
Which one?
Mississippi State. We did our tailgating, Celebrate Recovery, had a tent there for the Mississippi State Tennessee pregame, and then I left. The game went on, and it went to overtime. Unfortunately, State lost, but that was my point of, you engaged at the end. Well, in order to be there at the end. And that's what, for me, fans that tune out either don't watch it at all and then go, oh, that was a good race, I didn't see it. That's your own fault, I mean, honestly. But I thought it was great racing across the board. And I know we'll get to Kansas as a track specifically in a later hot topic. There again, and you're right, Chris, I understand fans want that of, because correct me if I'm wrong, the closest race in history was at Kansas between that guy of Kyle Larson and Chris Buescher, a few years back. Atlanta had their 3 wide. This was a 5-car battle of Toyotas up front, and a Chevy from 8th won it. So, are you going to get that every week, every race, every lap? No. I mean, that's just unrealistic thinking. Again, is Barry Bonds or whoever in baseball going to hit a home run every time, every game? No, it's just not going to happen. So appreciate it when it does. And I know you're right. I understand the fatigue of that. And that goes to any sport when you have that dominance, dynasty, if you will, whether it be Hendrick Motorsports as a team, a driver, whatever. But that's part of it. And you got to appreciate it. And Sharon and I were talking, like I said, I thought the racing was good, and we saw drivers racing for themselves from one aspect, and I know we'll get into that specifically, for themselves for the win. If they did it right or correctly, that's another story and an opinion, and whether or not it's your favorite driver. I really thought, you mentioned Chase Elliott's interview. I thought he showed some class, because my answer there would have been, I beat your least favorite driver. I was waiting for it. And we've seen Chase Elliott have comments like that back a few years when him and Harvick had their deal, and Harvick got out of the playoffs, and he wished him a merry holidays because he knew he was out of the playoffs. So I thought that something like that might be coming, but you're right. He did show humility and understand of he's gone through a stretch. And there too, fans screaming, oh, Alan Gustafson screwed him again, made him take 4 tires and cost him all that track position. Well, guess what? It worked out. Now he's the hero. You can't have it both ways.
Okay, yeah, I thought the racing was good all the way around. We've really got 3 series in the ARCA Menards series. Brennan Queen now has 8 races in
Another
that
one.
series.
Yeah.
In that series as well. And I get it. I try to remind myself because I remember I had Jimmy Johnson fatigue when he was winning all those championships. I liked Jimmy Johnson. I thought he was a good race car driver, but I wanted to see somebody else win for a change. And so I understand the fatigue. But at the same time, I think we do have to remind ourselves there's a lot of history being made this season that we don't usually see. And it's just ironic that we've got 3 different series that's happening in. I'm trying, to appreciate the fact that we are watching history in the making. And I know it's not easy because I get fatigued as well. So I feel your pain, Chris, but you missed a good one this week. I have to say that you missed a good one with this Xfinity Series race. It was an exciting finish. And yeah, Chase Elliott came from 8th place. Denny Hamlin came from 6th place to be up there contending for that win. So it was an exciting finish. The Cup Series race, and I will get more in depth on that in a little bit. The Cup Series race, first, I just went brain dead. Who won? Oh, that was the Cup Series race. The Xfinity Series race was a good finish too with Brandon Jones. I think I'm getting those 2 races kind of crossed over. The Xfinity Series race with Brandon Jones was really good too. There was a lot of racing throughout that race. You didn't really know who was going to win because Connor Zilisch was up there racing for it. And so was Brandon Jones, but he really closed the deal at the end of that race. The race out at the West Series, that was a 3-wide finish for the race. And we've got an interview coming up. We've been interviewing a lot of Jan's Racing and Towing drivers all season long. We've had Jan Quackenbush, the owner, on. We've had Trevor Huddleston, Kyle Keller, and Robbie Keneally. We had Robbie Keneally's mom. Joey Keneally was on the show. Well, tomorrow, Jay and I are going to be interviewing one of the 3-wide drivers, Eric Johnson Jr. is going to be, we're going to interview him, and that interview will probably be out early on Wednesday morning. So there was an exciting race there as well, and a lot of folks probably missed it. And I will tell you, I think some of the most exciting race on the ARCA Menards platform has actually taken place out in the West Series this year. There's been a lot of different drivers that have won, basically in the top 5, but there's been several drivers that are in contention for that win at every single race. Jake Bowman's won. He's not a top 5 driver, but in the races that he's been in, he's won. So I think it's been an exciting season for the ARCA West Series, and it's sad that more people aren't tuning into that because there's some good racing going on out there. So that's my take on all. Did I catch all? Oh, the ARCA Menards series with Brendan Queen. And he didn't lead all the time. There were different drivers that were up in the lead, but he did close it out again. And he has a way of doing that. He might not be leading. He might lead a lot of laps and he might not be leading all the time, but he finds a way to make sure he's out front when it's time for the end of that race. And he had to survive a couple of overtime attempts in order to win that race. So it was pretty exciting. So that's my take on the 3 races. So you want to go back around, Chris?
Can I bait Chris here before he gets started? Chris, so you didn't watch the race. From your impression or what you know or think, was it Connor Zilisch dominated, just didn't get the win? Brandon Jones just happened to beat him?
Yeah, I mean, probably.
Okay. Okay.
I think every time I flipped the channel over, it was Zilisch in the
Okay.
lead.
So can I give you some stats? Brandon Jones led 5 times for 54 laps. Connor led 3 times for 42 laps. Rookie Taylor Gray led once for 13. It was Justin Allgaier that led the most, 4 times for 79 laps. Connor Zilisch did not dominate. That's where I said, and it's media, your own persons, not just yours. A person's thoughts. Oh, Connor Zilisch just didn't win, but he dominated. He didn't. I mean, and the stats don't lie.
Well, and by the way, Brandon Jones has won now at Kansas Speedway 3 times. It's a track that he's especially good at.
Wow.
You just happen to be here I can pick on, Chris, so I use you as my example. Yeah.
Did y'all watch any football Saturday?
I did watch some football. I've been watching the college football events.
So maybe there were some games that I had a little bit more skin in, you know?
I still haven't seen the LSU was it Mississippi?
No.
Yeah, Ole Miss. The Rebels won that one.
Miss. Yep. Okay, yeah. I was going to say I thought that was an Ole Miss. I still haven't seen that one, but I'd like to see it. But yeah, I thought there was some good racing, good football. All the way around.
Saturdays are jam-packed these days, man.
So, Chris, go ahead and give us your thoughts.
Well, I mean, look, obviously I stood corrected with the stats by Jay. Look, it's boogie time, right? We're gonna get off into the playoff season, deep into the playoff season. The races are gonna mean a little bit more. By no means did I want to stand up here and talk bad about it, but my own, second part to my discussion is the fact that mostly I've always taken up for the trucks and for the Xfinity series by them producing the best racing. Mm-hmm. And I think that right now the Cup Series is actually producing a little bit better racing, which is great. I mean, that's great for the guys. Before we get up into the next movement, if you want to know why we need a race in your end championship, look at what we've seen. And if you want to go back to a 36 style race championship, this past Sunday would have meant nothing. It would have just been 2 drivers.
Nobody would have been tuning in.
It very well could be, right? I mean, you've got to give us a reason to tune in. So thank you. That furthers my point that that was some great racing, and I'm glad that I've stayed involved with the Cup Series side, though I've wavered a little bit on some of the other series.
Just don't do it again, Chris.
No, and like I said, it wasn't that I was attacking you, Chris, because like I said, that's what I see just from listening to Sirius XM, the callers that call in, that's what it is. And I understand it. You got your favorite driver or non-favorite driver, whichever the case may be. And I get it. You're right. Even when I was a Jeff Gordon fan, I didn't want to see Jeff Gordon win 12, 15 races and have that championship locked up with 3 or 4 races to go. I lost interest, and my guy was the one winning it. So, but going back to the Xfinity, I really, like I said, this is one where some of the fans, Brandon Jones got lucky. He wins a race every 5-10 years or something, whatever they said.
Obviously, he shows up at Kansas.
Right, yeah, absolutely. If they run Kansas every week, he'd be in good shape. But for me, whether he's your favorite driver, feel he should have been penalized like he was, Austin Hill was in contention, ended up 3rd, and that was a great storyline. Sheldon Creed was in it at the end, again, trying to get more than 2nd because he's Mr. Second place and would have advanced. Taylor Gray as the rookie in the playoffs. That's not Connor Zilisch in their battle and ended up
he's
6th.
below the cut line.
Right. So there again, that all adds into it. And like you said, Chris, I got no understanding of fans that want to go back to the 36 point or race points season, other than you got a couple of people, and Mark Martin and I think Dale Jr. might even be one of them, that are hyping that. And that's where then just fans are like, oh, that's what we got to do. This car tomorrow or next gen car, oh, you can't pass with it. That I think, I was telling Sharon, I think drivers are buying into it, and that's why they're racing the way they are when they don't have to, but they got that in their head. And I'll get into that when we talk about the Denny Hamlin situation. But with the Xfinity series, like I said, and I listened to it on the radio, again, of that, but just listening, if you truly look at it from a storyline outside of your favorite or least favorite driver. The other one I wanted to shout out, Chris, you talked about it as drivers move up in the reality check. Brendan Queen got to start with Colleague Racing in the number 11, started 4th, finished 9th. Again,
Good
there's
job.
a great story. Yeah, that's exactly. There's a great story in that race,
Right.
but it's all about whether or not Connor Zilisch continues his dominance, or Corey Heim in the truck series, or, whatever. People get locked onto that one story, and that's all they see or hear. And that's where I think fans are the ones ruining racing.
Of course. I mean, you nailed it. We are so right now in society.
I appreciate you being humble enough to admit we.
No, we are. I mean, as a society, we really are. And we're so programmed for hype, right? Like, it's hard to watch racing when college football is as good as it is at this time of season. Yeah, that echoes, and we as race fans are terrible about making our inner thoughts public. Like, I understand we're a sport where only one person can win out of multiple contenders, but that's basically a championship every week for us. And I think that sometimes, like you said, either the driver turns us off or the driver turns us on. It's um, we're so caught up into what is happening, what's the hype right now, and I think that we lose interest or quickly can be um, as equal to giving something else our attention versus what we normally would do. And I think that all of us are as guilty of that as the other. I think that probably my biggest regret in life right now is I spend too much time on this darn phone. Like, I can sit here and like last night where it was a great football game, it ended in a 40-40 tie. I was so lost in my Twitter that I literally look up and it's regular programming on. And I was like, wait a minute, it was just tied. What, who won?
Oh, you missed the end.
It ended in a tie. So, I mean, that's how involved we are sometimes with things with distraction. I think we have so many different things pulling our attention that it's so easy to get off course, to find an excuse of why I don't want to watch something, or why I'm not involved with something. And honestly, I think that if we continue that, we're going to ruin racing. I see it at a dirt level. I see it at an asphalt level. Probably not as much in the lower ranks of asphalt, but I definitely see it. It's disgusting on the NASCAR level side. Like, I don't ever hear a Formula One person complaining about Formula One. I never hear IndyCar people complaining about IndyCar. But boy, oh boy, just turn it on Dave Moody for 5 minutes, or look at Twitter, and you'll find every negative thing about the sport. And you literally have uh, patriarchs of the sport fanning it. Like Kenny Wallace fans this stuff. He doesn't pull it to a stop. He fans it. And perfect example of what you said, Jay, about what Dale Jr. had said. Basically, that I believe I heard something where he was saying that it was taking the excitement out of June and July, where somebody would get into it, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, that's gonna hurt the championship side. I'm like, really, Dale Jr. in July and August, Now, what we had this past weekend is a perfect example of why Dale Jr. didn't make any sense in that comment about how it keeps you on the edge of the seat and it really matters in June and July. Basically, what he was saying is these drivers can get a win and it no longer matters because whatever happens in this race won't penalize them toward the end of the season. Where in the old format, if you were running for a championship and you were close, if you had a blowout or something like that to that effect, that it would have, you would watch as the championship would start to get away and it would be an on your edge of the seat moment. And I think that that's probably this weekend is the perfect example of why this is so much more important, because it is at the end of the season. It is up against the hype of college football and NFL and I mean, how are we going to keep people interested into a sport where these races wouldn't even matter toward the end of the year? At least they matter at this time of year versus not mattering at all. That's what I'm trying to say. Because that race this past Sunday, that race Sunday evening would not have mattered nowhere near as much. It would have had nowhere near the implications as what it has. We are looking at two Toyota drivers that could possibly miss the grade. And it's because of the incident that happened on the last lap, the last corner of this race in Kansas. That means that it is important. That means that there is a defining moment into why racing is in a playoff style situation and not the typical old format of racing 36 races. And plus, let's be real, guys. Through most of the schedule back in the 80s and 90s, it was only 28 races on the schedule, not 36, okay? Not 38 races, right? It was only, I think, 26 to 28 races with a couple of, the All-Star and the duel, not the duels, the clash at Daytona. So I'll pass the baton once again. I feel like I've been talking too long. Y'all step up.
And let's keep it to the topic, which is the racing at Kansas. You're skipping ahead on us. You're skipping ahead on us because we've got changes for the playoff in 26 later on.
Yeah, but that's right. So let's move into that because I'm not sure if there's anything else that we would have to say about Kansas racing other than what I just kind of spilled at. If I fell off topic there, I'm very sorry. But
that's okay. It's just that. Yeah, and I at first I thought I knew where you were going, and then it just kind of went on. Jay, any follow up to the racing?
Well, yeah, I don't know if that's, again, the racing at Kansas matters, but that doesn't mean the regular season doesn't. I'll use Austin Hill. Again, being where he was racing at right now, I think, and I was trying to pull up the standings, I think he's 7 points out. If he had the 21 points he had earned during the season but got taken away due to the penalty, he'd be in. So it's not that the regular season early in the year doesn't matter. It does, because what you earn there protects you or helps you, carries you through the playoffs. And there are a couple of drivers in that boat. They know they got a little bit of a cushion, not, whatever. So I think it all ties together. Wow. Yeah, Joey's one of them on the Cup side. You're right. So I think that's where right now the system we got is really good. And like Chris said, it really did. Everything that happened at Kansas was based on where they are, based on previous races, as now going to determine where they're at going into the Roval. I think this Roval could be a real wild card. I know that's something else, another topic. So I'll let Sharon wrap this up and then we'll move on.
Okay, yeah. Again, I thought the racing was really good. I was watching those drivers that are below the cut line. Harrison Burton fell below the cut line in the Xfinity series, and that meant that somebody else moved up. So you watch those kind of things when you're talking about what's happening in the playoffs. But and the other thing is that we're up against the competition with not just the college football, but the baseball playoffs are beginning now too. So we've got the baseball playoffs, we've got the NFL season that's starting up, you got the college football season that's really kind of getting geared up. And there's a lot of competition for those viewers to watch the NASCAR races that are going on. And again, the fans, sometimes I wonder if they're trying to kill the sport because they're not promoting the sport. And the way I look at it, we're here to promote this sport and to create interest and to keep fans engaged. And I think that they've done a good job. They maybe could have promoted Brendan Queen being in that race a little bit more with his 8 races in the ARCA Menards series. He's coming up to the Xfinity series to race with Colleague Racing, good equipment. He came home with a top 10 finish. And that's something that's not even playoff related, but I think could have been promoted a little bit more. They could have promoted that Brandon Jones has won twice before in the Xfinity series and that he was a strong contender. I think we did that a little bit, but, I don't know that NASCAR promoted it as much. And we just have to do a better job of kind of hyping up these races. Corey Heim is making history with his run in the truck series. And look at all the races he didn't win this season. He could have won so many more races, but other drivers did kind of compete and go after those victories. So there were other winners in that truck series, and there was good racing throughout the year. And the ARCA series, ARCA Menards series and ARCA West series, they always have drivers that are coming and going. You have the local favorites that come in. And I think about Kelly Kofsky in Illinois here. When he's racing, a lot of Illinois fans get excited and they tune in and check that out. We need to hype those local drivers that are in those races. I felt so bad, though, for Justin Bonsignor. He was one of the only accidents in the Xfinity series, and his day was cut short. And he was running for an owner's championship, and they fell below the cut line on the owner's championship side. So that accident was a big deal. And I know a lot of people don't follow the owner's championship, but that's why he was in that race, is to help them secure a better spot. There's so many different storylines that go into some of these races. We just need to get better about hyping those kind of things and getting people excited about watching those kind of things. And I think that would be really important. It's hard to do a playoff format like in something like the Xfinity series. I'm sorry, not Xfinity. In the ARCA Menards series platform, because there's not as many drivers competing in those series. But there's a chance for us to really promote the drivers that are the future stars of NASCAR. Where do you think Joey Logano came from, and Kyle Larson and all of these drivers? They came up through the ARCA Menards series. And so this is a chance to preview the future stars of NASCAR. So I think those series are really, really important. And I know I can be a Pollyanna sometimes, but there's a lot of great reasons to tune into these races. There really are. So that's my final say on it. Let's get into the competition, defense versus offense, and the incident with Denny Hamlin. That's basically what you were getting at there, weren't you, Jay?
Yeah. So there again, I think drivers have kind of bought into, and I'm not a driver. I don't drive a car. I'm not saying there aren't some issues with the next gen car by any means. Is it hard? From what all the drivers say, yes. But again, it's supposed to be. But it has been proven and shown that you can race with it. We have seen cars come from the back. So in this race in particular, as it led to the situation that ended on the last lap, Denny Hamlin restarted 7th, and I think Chase Elliott was 8th. He drove up to the front by offensively driving, going to the bottom, driving by the cars. When he got up to the lead, he got to driving defensively, running his competitor, which happened to be a car he owned, up the track, which he caught them. Part of the reason he caught them was because they were doing the same thing. Bubba Wallace and was it Christopher Bell and Chase Briscoe. they were doing the same thing, trying to side draft and slow the other car down, bog them down. Denny Hamlin drove up to him, but then got caught up in that same activity. Chase Elliott stayed to the plan, drove to the bottom, and just drove by him, you know. And I think that's something that I feel like the drivers themselves have kind of gotten caught up in this mentality. Oh, we have to side draft and slow the other car down versus us go faster. So I think Denny Hamlin, you know, and I say this again, I'm not the biggest Denny Hamlin fan. I like the fact that he was racing hard, whether it was a car he owned, a teammate to him, whatever. I like that. But I think he cost himself by not racing his car in his race. He was racing defensively, and it cost him. It cost Toyota as a manufacturer. I mean, and I know I heard a lot of talk today on the radio about that. Ford, normally this is a Talladega or Daytona super speedway talk, but as a manufacturer, not that you're colluding or whatever the other word is, manipulating, but Toyota should have won that race. They had 5 of them battling for the win, and a Chevy came from 8th to take it. So, yeah, I think there should have been a little bit more smart driving there, whether it be for yourself or at least then your manufacturer team next. But like I said, from the fan point, Hamlin, by all means, race for your own win, get your 60, good on you. But you didn't, you know, and Chris, you alluded to it. And I watched a little bit of comparison going back to Austin Dillon. Yeah, it was there. He blocked high, and then he tried to come down and block Chase low. And I've watched that replay a couple of times. From what I've seen, Chase Elliott didn't move up the track much, if at all. You know, everybody's saying, well, he banged into him hard. I think Hamlin came down more than Elliott went up. But it did look, you know, he did go high and then he did come low, trying to block 2 lanes. But again, it was not nearly as egregious as what it was. He was at least racing, not just throwing it caution to the wind and seeing what happened from that aspect. So I don't carry that same weight of egregiousness that Austin Dillon had. But either way, it didn't do him any good because Chase Elliott was driving offensively. And he talked about it in his interview. He saw what was happening, set himself up, and Chase went from the high side, cut through the middle, and then down to the bottom to drive around all that. You know, that's to me is what you should be doing rather than, oh, I got to block. I got to keep them behind me. If you just drive faster than they do, they're behind you.
Chris?
Well, my question is, what would Dale do?
What would Dale do?
Yeah, what would Dale do?
You tell us.
Run over everybody.
He blocked for 2 of his cars to win the Daytona 500.
Okay.
No offense, R.I.P. Dale Earnhardt Sr. Denny took the darn thing. Denny obviously feels like he's the inferior driver. He literally ran his own employee up in the wall. He felt like he deserved it more than Bubba did. And look, I love racing. Racing's a selfish sport. That's what we want our driver to do. I'm not going to say that Earnhardt got killed because he was blocking, but Earnhardt might have got killed because he was blocking for his cars to win. At least Denny went up there and took it, and it didn't work out for him, and now they both feel like big dummies. Keeping it PG. And then you see Bubba and how he handled the situation. Let's talk about that. I've praised Bubba all year, and then he gives Denny Hamlin the middle finger on the cool down lap. I mean, is that a very smart move to do? Right? I mean, that's your boss, right? Did you expect him to not race you? What does that mean? What does that even mean? Did you expect Denny to give it to you? Like, that's going to be good for 2311 for Denny to give it to you? I mean, I'm just torn. And look, we got, I mean, it's an open subject. I can't wait to feed off of what you guys have to say about this very topic. Because, I mean, I could be devil's advocate and go every which way possible. The fact of it is two guys got caught up racing. This is going to have implications with who gets in the Final Four. We're setting the stage right now for 3 Hendrick drivers to possibly make it into the Final Four. And it was all because of that move. It was all because of that move, right? Because you're almost guaranteeing if Denny Hamlin gets the win that he's probably going to go to the Final Four based off of where he is in points, right? And then if Bubba gets in, Bubba's the spoiler, right? But who knows? Like, he could carry the momentum into the final stretch. You're coming up on Talladega. That's a wild card. I mean, it could have been anybody's ride, but now it looks like Toyota's going to be on the outside looking in. We know how well Ford picks up here at the end. So, I don't know. I mean, I think that Denny did as a race fan, and if I was a fan of Denny Hamlin, I would not have any regrets about what he did, because that is what I expect my driver to do. And as Denny Hamlin said, he drives for that number 11 race team. Joe Gibbs writes a big check for him to drive that race car. He did exactly what he was supposed to do, and anybody that argues that likes team orders, and they like Formula One racing. And I'm just not that much of a fan of team orders.
Is it my turn?
Sure.
Okay.
It's your
I'm
show.
probably gonna,
It's your show.
I think I'm going to surprise a few people because Denny Hamlin said, on Sundays, I'm a race car driver for Joe Gibbs Racing. Mm-hmm. And that is the truth on Sundays. And let me tell you, if he had done something to ensure, and I had to think about this because at the beginning, I was a little upset with Denny Hamlin. I'm like, man, he should have looked at the bigger picture. That's his driver, blah, 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 blah. And I was caught up right in all of that, right? But then
here we go. I
started thinking about it, and I said, wait a minute, you can't have it both ways. Right. One of Jay's favorite statements. There's a difference between wrecking a teammate when you're in the middle of the race, like he did with Ty Gibbs. Okay, when he had plenty of time to try to get around him, there could have been pit stops. There could have been a lot of different ways he could have gotten around Ty Gibbs. He did not have to wreck him to do that. And I think in retrospect, he realizes that. But at the end of the race, on the last lap, I'm not advocating that you wreck each other to win, because to Dre's point, I think they've got this mentality, it's the only way to win. It's not the only way to win. I've seen plenty of races where there's been a 3-wide finish at the end, and we have to wait to find out who won that race because it was that competitive. I like those kind of finishes. I like the finishes where you have to really work for it to get around that guy, and you eventually do. Those are exciting finishes to me. To me, you don't have to wreck the guy in order to win, okay? Denny Hamlin has already said if he had it to do over again, he would have given Bubba Wallace more room there, and he would not have pushed him up against the wall like he did. And that's the other thing that these drivers do. They squeeze him up against the wall where they have nowhere to go. That's not racing. To me, that's not racing. I liked it when the drivers were really racing each other, going back and forth, crossover, all of that. That's fun racing. That's competitive racing. I'm not a fan of Denny Hamlin, but I have to defend him in this particular case. Not that he squeezed Bubba Wallace up against the wall, but it was the last lap. He has a responsibility to his team owner and his sponsors to go out there and win that race. And that's what he was doing. He was trying to win that race. Did he do it the most graceful way? No way. But he was trying to win that race. And that's what we like to see. We don't like to see team orders and protecting your teammate in order for them to get into the playoffs and all of that. I don't like that kind of racing. I want to see them out there racing each other for the win. And that's exactly what Denny Hamlin was doing. So I can't fault him for this one. I think there's a big difference between racing on the last lap and racing in the middle of the race and racing against your teammates. So last week I faulted him, and I think justifiably so. This week I'm going to defend him, and I think justifiably so. And I agree with your assessment, Jay, that it was not Chase Elliott that banged into Denny Hamlin. That was Denny Hamlin coming back down the track, trying to defend his position, but they were beating and banging. And in the end, it helped Hamlin. It helped Chase Elliott win the race. He ended up winning that race. Now, if Denny Hamlin was looking more big picture during the race instead of as an afterthought after the race, and given Wallace that little bit of more room, one of them could have won that race. And the same thing between Briscoe and I'm fans of all of those guys, of Briscoe and Bell, and they were beating and banging on each other too. So that beating and banging against each other did not help any of them. There's 4 Toyota drivers right there that were beating and banging on each other. And yes, we like to see them racing against one another. But there's a point of no return where you're not being productive. I don't know if you guys have heard of the bell curve. You can push and have so much pressure, you get to that peak, and it starts going the opposite direction. It goes down, and you're less productive. And that's what I think happened with Toyota this week. There was so much pressure on them. They all wanted to win that race, and they put so much pressure on themselves that they hit that point of being less productive rather than more productive. So they've got to manage that. They've got to manage their emotions. They've got to manage that pressure and manage it to their benefit rather than to their detriment. And if they can do that, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with, and nobody's going to be able to beat them. But they're beating themselves right now. Toyota and Joe Gibbs Racing, they are beating themselves. And that's the lesson to be learned. I think that's the lesson to be learned for these guys. Even though I'm defending Denny Hamlin for going for that win, I think there's a better way to go after that win. I hate it when guys get out of the car and they say, well, I had to do it. It was the only way I could win the race. And I'm like, no, you didn't have to do it. You did not have to do that. There was another way you could have won that race. So you don't have to do that. And you're right, Jay. I think there's a mentality right now that it's the only way. You've got to side draft. You've got to squeeze drivers up into the wall. And look at what happened to Zane Smith. Did you see that?
Yeah.
I was so worried for him. That guy was riding on the driver's side on the pavement. And thankfully we had a car that protected him. But we do not have to do that, guys. So let's just settle down a little bit and let's talk about how you can race better instead of trying to defend yourselves. Talk about offense and defense. They're spending too much time defending themselves about not being able to pass instead of doing what some of the drivers who are passing are doing and figuring out a way to pass. Because drivers are passing one another on these racetracks. And they're spending so much time complaining and defending that they're not figuring out a way to do it. So we've got to get past that. And the drivers have to adjust their mindset. It's an adjustment of mindset. I truly believe that. And I think you're on to something, Jay. They've got to adjust their mindset because the mindset that they are on is going to be destructive, not positive.
And I'm with you again. Not being a big Denny Hamlin fan, but in this race, do you want to give him a shout out of he did have a power. Again, I know there were some accusations of whether or not it was true, but I don't see any reason to question it. The power steering issue, and I've heard many drivers talk about that. You lose that, and you got to muscle that car. My issue there was Hamlin went from 7th or whatever on that restart, drove it underneath everybody, and got to the front, but then that defensive mindset switched, and that's what cost him. I think he could have actually won that race if he'd have stayed in that offensive mindset. I think it would have been a drag race then between him and Chase Elliott, because they could both, with the newer tires in the car, raced to the front and battled it out amongst themselves. But like I said, once he got to the front, then he went into that defensive mode. If he'd have stayed on the offensive side, I think he could have won that race. Like you said, I certainly want to give a shout out to him as far as, hey, I'm here to win for me, for this 11 team, get number 60. People like that. Oh, that's what's on his mind. That's what should be. I mean, that's what he's there for, is to race for those wins. So I do appreciate that. But he's one I've heard complain about Kyle Larson, like you were saying, drifting and pinching him up to the wall. Like, I know he's one that's complained about Kyle Larson doing that, and he did admit it post-race. Yeah, and he did admit it post-race. So overall, I got to give him his props for this week. And unfortunately, he had to accept it and learn that by losing it, because I think he knows he lost himself that race. Like you said, right now.
For him.
Yeah, exactly. Toyota is shooting themselves in the foot or in the tire, whichever case may be. But again, I think it makes for great racing. And do we get that if we're running 36 races for points? I don't think so.
I thought about doing a thumbnail with a foot with a hole in it.
Wow.
Okay, Chris, your follow-up?
Yeah, he played so much offense that it was offensive. Like, he literally showed no loyalty to anybody except for himself. He had number 60 on his mind, and that was the first thing out of his mouth. He didn't have the championship on his mind. He didn't have he was a car owner on his mind. He had the pure selfishness of being in that number 60 win and moving him into the top 10 greatest drivers of all time in the Cup Series. That's a lot. So I don't know where we can say that he played defense there at the end. The one who played defense probably was Bubba Wallace, because he had no other choice but to play defense. The move was made. That was a very offensive move. It was not a fall back and see how this thing goes move. He knew that he didn't have any power steering, and you heard him when he was out of the race car. When he first got out of the race car, at first I was like, man, he's taking this loss pretty hard. And then I rememred, oh, right.
No, he was wiped out. He was wiped out.
Man. He didn't have any power steering. So I think if he was chasing win number 45, he would have probably looked at it a little bit different, right? He's chasing number 60. He's chasing a position on that list. Father Time is undefeated, y'all. He may have already won his last race. We don't know. And it happened that quickly for Kevin Harvick, right? I mean, let's go back, 2021, Kevin Harvick's stats versus 2020, right? There's a fall off real quick, and he's afraid of that. And so if anybody was offensive or played the offense to their favor, it would have definitely been Denny Hamlin, because in this day and age of Cup racing, where loyalty is probably bigger than anything, where Ross Chastain can't race Chase Elliott a certain way because they're Chevy manufacturer teammates. What did Denny Hamlin do? He threw him over his shoulder and drove her in there. I mean, that's what you would ask for of any driver.
That's what we asked for.
Right. And so, number 60 was on his mind. He didn't unfortunately get that. And he'll be chasing again next week. The question is the deeper this goes, what is he? I mean, He wrecked a teammate last week, right? He wrecked his own car this week. What's going to happen next week?
God, help us.
I mean, you could have put Bell out of a championship. You literally put your own car out of a championship. Bubba Wallace could have, I said it earlier. He had, if he would have won that race, he could have very well squeaked his way into the final four of the season. The loyalty to Toyota. Wow. I mean, just imagine the Toyota executives at that table when they looked at each other and Chase Elliott made the pass on the low lane to win that race. Those executives had to have been looking at each other like disbelief. Like, you're going from celebratory, we've got two cars and they're racing it at the finish line, and it's Chase Elliott for the win. Okay, I'm done.
What was the 5, Jay?
Because it was 5. It was the 3 Joe Gibbs Racing, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, and Chase Briscoe, as well as the 2311. It was the top 5 were Toyotas between 2 organizations.
Yes, and Chase Elliott came from 8th.
Yep.
And it's because and they were all competing with one another, but they weren't doing it in a productive way. And that's what I think they need to take a look at. How can they be more productive and still race hard? Well, I'm not asking them not to race hard. I think they still need to race hard. I'm sorry, Jay, I'm taking up your spot. Go ahead.
You're good. No, you're good. You take my words anyway. I mean, we generally are thinking alike anyway. You're spot on.
Yeah, I'm not asking them not to race hard. They need to race each other hard. They just don't need to wreck each other. So go ahead, Jay.
That goes back to, again, I didn't understand why fans were against Ross Chastain. You didn't care who it was in front of him. It was the car in front of him. I'm going to pass him. Was he a little aggressive? Maybe so. Yep. But it didn't matter who was in front of him. It was the car in front of him, and he wanted that position, So, and Chris, you mentioned it, of whether Denny Hamlin should be focused on that number 60. By all means. I mean, that's his career you're talking about, and it would put him 10th on the all-times win list, not greatest list, wins list. I will counter that, but
I mean, the top 10 list is like the greatest. I mean, that is like that. You're one of the greatest of all time when you make that list of the top 10. Come on. There's no denying that. But when you look at the names that are on that list, you tell me one person that doesn't belong there. That's the greatest list of all time.
The word greatest bothers me. I will give it the all-time wins list, because again, so there's some drivers that don't get up. Yeah, there's some drivers that maybe not on that list.
Please.
No, I'm not.
This is going to be settled right here.
I'm not saying they aren't good drivers. I'm not saying they aren't good drivers. That's just like saying you're only a great driver if you won the championship. And Mark Martin never won a championship, but he's still one of the greatest drivers, in my opinion.
The word greatest. Won 1 cup championship, and it was the year that he broke his leg. 2. So
he's got 2. He's got 2. 2015 and 2015 and 2019, I think. Okay. 15 and 19.
Okay.
But I'm just saying the word greatest is an opinion. Factual is he is 10th, would be 10th on the all-time wins list. That's a fact. Greatest. That's an opinion. Yeah. And you're entitled to your opinion.
People who are not fond of Denny Hamlin in general.
Denny Hamlin hate is ridiculous, man. This kid is proven his worth.
But we gave him kudos today. So give us credit for that.
I did good.
Okay.
And I will say this, just like if Denny Hamlin doesn't win a championship in his career, I would put him in the same category as Mark Martin, one of the best drivers to not win a championship if he doesn't.
3 Daytona 500 championships.
Exactly. I agree.
Of like 8 premier, what are they called, races that he's won, including Coca-Cola 600s, and I mean, he's won all. Crown Jewels, yeah. Like Mark Martin never won a championship. He never won a Daytona 500. him and Carl Edwards are a lot similar. Denny Hamlin
Carl Edwards is another one.
very much surpasses Carl Edwards and Mark Martin. Denny Hamlin is night and day to those compared to those two drivers.
See, to me, a great driver, it also goes into how you carry yourself. And that, like I said, is he one of the best to not win a championship so far? Absolutely. But I think
now gets him in trouble.
And that's why I think part of that comes in, is if you're going to use that. See,
you know what I heard?
What did you hear?
When he was doing his interview and he just finished up his interview, a fan walked by him and said, "My favorite driver beat you today."
Yeah, I did hear that. That's why I said I really expected it to come from Chase Elliott. I really did.
No, it was a fan that told Denny Hamlin that. "My favorite driver beat you today."
Yep.
I thought that was funny.
Yep.
But he knows how to hit people's buttons, and he hits mine. So
well,
let's
I will say this, kind of like Kyle Busch, at least he's embraced. I think he goes over the top with it on occasion, but I think that's changed the way he races and carries himself too, by embracing it versus getting all
exactly. He needs to
frustrated with it.
Right. That's a good point. Chris, did you have something else to say?
No, I think I'm good.
You sure?
Yeah, I mean, did anybody catch the shift pattern on his shirt that they did when they were doing the little special or whatever that they did some little live scene or whatever, and he had on a shift pattern shirt, and I just wonder if that was maybe a
I didn't catch it. Yeah, I didn't catch that.
Real race car drivers drive a manual or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we don't want to go. That goes with the one lug nut issue I have. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that either. But
that's Denny. You have to look at what his T-shirt says. He's that kind of guy. Like, read his T-shirt.
Now, tell me what his T-shirt said again.
It had a shift pattern on there. I don't know. I'll have to pull it up. It made me think about the sequential shifting or whatever.
The H pattern manual versus the sequential.
Real race car drivers drive the H pattern or something like that. I don't know, but it's always, look. There's certain people you have to look at what their T-shirt says, and you'll kind of figure it out real quick. And Denny's one of those that he's subtle, but he's also very opinionated, and he has no problem letting somebody know his opinion. And I think in this day and age where so many, we call them vanilla drivers, I really don't see the vanilla of most of the drivers. Honestly, I think they all have a little bit. I think they all have a little bit of character to them. Maybe William Byron, maybe, I don't know, but we're not going to get into that subject right now. But that's what we want out of race car drivers. We want them to be them, and that's maybe the reason for the dislike of Denny Hamlin, because he's always been able to speak his mind. He's always never been afraid to.
I don't dislike him. He's just not my favorite.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of the good old boys left out of the North Carolinas or the Eastern Seaboard that for years to come, there'll only be a few of those that actually come out of that region from now on, because racing is has such an impact all around America. We're pulling just as many drivers out of Washington and California as we are the East Coast these days.
Yeah, they moved to Carolina. I mean, and I think of William Zilisch. He's living in Carolina now, but yeah, he's from Minnesota.
A lot of the drivers moved there. Okay, let's move on to our next topic. Is Toyota still dominant? Chris?
I bet they're asking that question. I mean, Denny Hamlin's wreaking havoc on them, guys. I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. Coming into the Roval, I'm not sure if manufacturer really means much of anything. This is kind of puts it back into the driver's hands. What drivers are good at doing left and right turns, what drivers are better at it than others. Obviously, we'll all have to sit back and probably watch SVG put a 10-second gap on everybody, and that's probably just going to be the way the racing is. It'll be from second on back. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of easy to say right now that maybe there's crink in the armor. Maybe they rose too quick, right? You want to hit your hot streak right at the right time. What if they fired off just a little bit too early? What a disappointment that would be, knowing that they swept a round only to get swept out of the final round, right? Because it all looked so good and well. I think that there's issues right now with a couple of the Chevy cars. You're not seeing, I think, Larson had a pretty good run. He was my pick, which most of the time when I pick Larson, because I don't like him, he normally wrecks out for me, which is what I deserve because I don't like him. And so if I'm going to pick him, that's kind of what I deserve to happen to me. But he didn't wreck this time, and he actually garnered me a few points there. But William Byron seems to be off. William Byron, I don't know what's going on there. It's like a
Well,
light
this
switch
wasn't one of his better tracks either.
and that's not typical of a 1.5-mile speedway, I think, especially from a Hendrick Motorsports perspective. But we do have Martinsville left on the schedule. We have Talladega. What's the race after the Roval? I forget who is that?
It should be Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. Oh yeah, another 1.5-mile track. But we've seen a lot of action here at the 1.5-mile speedways. I don't know. Has Toyota sizzled? I think that they're. I think that they've already left the kitchen, right? You hear the fajitas coming and they're almost to your table, and somewhere or another, they're probably not as hot as what they were a couple of days ago. So, or as they were coming out of the kitchen. Let's hold to that analogy. I think that after that race, they were probably cashing checks before before the finish, and then, like I said, they probably were left staring at each other like, what did we just watch? So this could have really popped the balloon for Toyota. What are your thoughts,
Jay?
Yeah, it depends on how you want to look at it. Again, during that race, I think as a whole, again, going into the final lap, you had five Toyotas that were battling for it. I really feel like they have absolutely dominated the racing through the playoffs this round. Now, when you break it down right now, there's 3 Toyotas, 3 Chevys, and 2 Fords in the final 8, as the point standings are right now. On the outside, though, it's 2 Toyotas, Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick, 1 Ford and Austin Cindric, and the Chevy of Ross Chastain. So did they shoot themselves in the foot at the finish of this race? Did we lose Chris? He'll come back.
Oh, did we? He'll come back.
Yeah. I do think they are still dominant. Now, like Chris said, the Roval is kind of open, especially when you throw in SVG. Give him a big shout out. He got himself a top 10 on an oval track, and he raced around that area the whole day. I mean, that wasn't got there at the end by anything. That's where he raced all day. I don't see the Roval being a manufacturer-specific type track. So it will be interesting because there I think you strictly got to look at who's a good road course racer. Chase Elliott should be in the mix. We know Blaney will be. Kyle Larson is hit or miss, in my opinion. Denny Hamlin does not do well as far as the Roval or overall road course racing. Christopher Bell, good. Chase Briscoe, good. I think then underneath the line there, you got Bubba Wallace of, okay, Tyler Reddick and Austin Cindric, both good road course racers. If it's not SVG, I know what there again, we're getting into that mindset of already determining that it's SVG's race. Well, you got some good road course racers there. Ty Gibbs is one that took it to him in Mexico. So I think it's going to be interesting. But I do think here in the playoffs, I think I said this a few weeks ago, Toyota has stepped up a little, and I think Chevy and Ford have been a little lacking. So it looks like a bigger gap than maybe it is. But we know Fords do turn it up here. It seems like in the playoffs. So we'll see how this Roval goes. I don't know where Chris went.
Well, I've got some charts here I want to bring up because he mentioned William Byron. Hold on.
No, I was going to say that's kind of been William Byron's season. Honestly, in my opinion, his career, it seems like he starts the year real strong and just doesn't have the stamina or whatever to finish it.
Yeah. Okay. Now, This first chart I'm going to bring up here. Let me bring it up. Share screen. Whoops.
I didn't hear that Chris got a call there, did he? Let me see if I can. Oh,
I don't know. Let me bring this up here. It's not letting me share it. Am I frozen? Okay, can you see that?
yeah, that's up now.
Okay, let me enlarge it just a little bit.
Chris said he can't
Okay.
get back on. Chris said he can't get logged back in.
I wonder why. Huh. Does he have the right link? Let me
I would
send
think
him
so.
the link.
All right.
Invite. Copy. Okay. I know we're got a lot of dead space here, Jay. Do you want to look at that chart?
Yeah, can you enlarge it just a little bit more?
Let's see.
Okay.
Okay, the only thing is you want to get
Right. All
the
the years.
info.
Yeah, I got you.
So let me.
There you go.
Okay. And I'm trying to get the link over to Chris. Okay,
Yeah, I don't know what.
hold on.
Being
We've
that we're
got
a
so
live
much
show,
dead
you should be
space.
able to. Well, it should be able to get logged back in with the being it's a live show.
Okay, I think that's him now. I heard
All
that
right.
dink. Yeah, he's okay. I'm adding him to the
There we
stage
go.
here. Okay,
Yay,
this is a
he's
chart.
back.
Yeah, this is a chart from Fantasy Racing, iFantasy Racing, and it gives this happens to be for Kansas, and it gives you the average finishes. A lot of these guys, if you look at Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, these guys have pretty nice average finishes. William Byron is down here in 10th at 10.7, but look at his most recent. Well, it doesn't include this week, but he's kind of middle of the road for the most part. He had a number one finish in the 24 race last year, but overall, it's not his best track. So that's one thing. Then I've got this one for the Charlotte Roval for next week. And again, looking at average finishes, let me see if I can share this one now. Okay, can you see that? No.
There. Now it's coming up.
Okay, that's not the right one though.
Oh.
Okay, I have to remove this one. No. Okay, we'll have to try that again. There's another one here that I wanted to show you. Share screen. X. Share. Okay, can you see this one? These are the average finishes the last 3 years at the Charlotte Roval. And who are the drivers and their average finishes. Now, William Byron's a little bit better at the Roval. He's in fourth? He's in fourth place. He's tied with Shane Van Gisbergen, I guess. But yeah, there's a lot of difference here. So it's going to be a little bit. Now, talking about Toyotas, you've got Christopher Bell up there, Tyler Reddick, and they're the only two Toyotas that I see up there for the Roval. So just some stats that I thought I'd share with you with regard to Toyota's dominance. I think Toyota, they won the first 3 races in the first round, right?
Yep.
So we'll have to see now. They had a chance. They could have probably finished 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, or maybe even 5 at this race, and they shot themselves in the foot. So we'll see how they rebound and recover as to whether or not they're still going to be dominant. But they're going to have to really take a close look at themselves and figure out what went wrong and have that serious conversation about whether or not they can change their mindset here. Chris?
Yeah, it's, I don't really have much to follow up on with Toyota being whether or not they're going to be a dominant factor. It's hard to believe that a team with 3 big players, Briscoe, Bell, Hamlin, could find themselves on the outside looking in. But, at the same time, you've got a field with, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, William Byron, Joey Logano, and Ryan Blaney. And there's only 4 that's going to go. So this is the trim down. And I think that, some kind of crazy something happens this weekend. Maybe Austin Cindric picks up a win and really just throws a wrench in the bucket. That's the only thing that I can see that would, take away from the showdown. The showdown is going to be the final 3 races, and who's had a year of dominance only to fizzle out when it mattered most, and who's going to have the Cinderella story where they were just, hanging in there to make it to the playoffs. And, that would definitely be a Joey Logano story or, maybe a Chase Elliott story. But as for Hamlin and Bell, I don't know, where's Bell at right now, y'all? Seriously, where is Christopher Bell?
He's got, 4 or 5 wins.
Right. But then we have the other side of the coin where, it's like he's running 20 seconds. So I'm not sure.
Well, he was in the top 5 this week.
He was. And was running quite well last week when Denny Hamlin almost took him and out of the game there. But look, it's gonna come down to there's only 4 spots for the final 4, and there's about 8 drivers. Typically, this time of year, over the years, we've talked about the top 3.
Right.
I just named 6 drivers, guys. 6 drivers with a possibility of 8, right? I mean, we're talking 3 from each team, and then the two Penske drivers. So, and we've got to go down to 4 after this next round. So I don't know. Can Toyota keep up the momentum? It's something that we'll have to keep our eye on. There's definitely some tracks that Chevy is in favor of, and also it could be a Ford factor in all of this as well.
That's one of those and I'm with Chris I don't think as far as the Roval or road course racing in general leans towards any manufacturer. That is more about the driver themselves versus a manufacturer that has a particular track figured out. So it'll be interesting. Again, if you look at and pencil in, and I said I'm guilty of it here, of that mindset of just buying in, it's SVG's race to win. Yeah, he's a great road course racer, so it is going to go through him, no doubt. But you mentioned Austin Cindric in 12th, good road course racer. Tyler Reddick as well. And then Ross Chastain, who's only 13 points out. I think that's a big thing you got to look at is if SVG wins, it is a points battle then between Ross Chastain and Joey Logano, who are the 13 points above and below. But Chase Briscoe at plus 21 isn't out of the woods either. Good thing is he is typically a solid road course racer. So then it would be whether a team, not just manufacturer of Toyota, but a team shoots himself in the foot and does something to take themselves out. I think that's going to be the biggest thing when it comes to the Roval. Do you take yourself out of it?
Okay, and that's what they don't want to do if they can help it.
Right.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move on. We've kind of been dancing around this one all night long. Playoff talk. Let's go ahead and start with the Kansas championship race. A lot of people after the Kansas race are calling for the championship race to be at Kansas. What are your guys' thoughts about that? And Jay, I think it's your turn.
Well, I mean, that one, and we see this after every great race. Atlanta had the 3-wide battle. They said, oh, put Atlanta back in the championship, which it was back in the day. Change it up. It's Phoenix, it's Homestead. I would love to see Kansas have the opportunity, but I got to caution people, not just from the fans' perspective, if that's the championship race. We're talking the Midwest. It could be snowing. It could be cold, whatever. But is the racing the same then? We saw that at Bristol when the fall night race, that the track is different and we don't get the same racing when the temperature changes. That's my only concern as far as when it comes to Kansas being the championship race. Has it put on some of the best racing in the last couple years? Absolutely. So I understand why everybody's clamoring for that. What you've got to look at, though, is you're talking a month or more difference, and the temperature change can affect the track. Not just, and Sharon, go way back. I was at Atlanta in 96, I think it was, for Jeff Gordon's. Yeah, I had on as much clothes and jacket as I could have, and I was still freezing to death,
Well, I remember when it snowed at Bristol.
Right. So that's my only thing. And like I said, I think that changes the racing itself then too, when it comes to the track. So I'm a little leery about it. I certainly would like to see them have that opportunity, because I do think in the last few years it has produced some of the best racing. And that's clear. We got the closest race in NASCAR history there between Kyle Larson and Chris Buescher. And we had this past weekend of a 5-wide settled amongst themselves battle. So from that aspect, yeah, I think it should be considered. However, you got to consider all factors, not just this last week or the closest race ever was at that track. If that's the case, you go to Darlington as well. There's other factors to consider.
Chris?
I've made my claim here many times on this subject. I'm not down for specifically one racetrack having the championship. I'm more down for that to rotate out each and every year. I'm just as a proponent to have Texas Motor Speedway be that final race as I would be Atlanta, as I would be Homestead, as I would be Las Vegas. I think that that's a date that should go around. And if we're going to continue to have a 4-man championship at the end of the season, then at least rotate them out so that each racetrack brings a little bit different dynamic and you can continue to keep the parity. The one thing I think that we've seen over the last several years with Arizona and with the Phoenix racetrack is a certain manufacturer has got it figured out. And that's where they're going to put their eggs in the basket, where it matters most. And so if you continue to rotate that date around and you don't stay very long in one spot, I think that keeps the musical chairs going. And I'm all for Kansas. I'm also all for St. Louis. I'm all for Nashville Fairgrounds. I am for anywhere that we can race. And look, if you're just going to do it one time and then it's going to be somebody else's turn, there'll be some years where our championship race where you'll have to bring coveralls and a propane heater set up. And then there'll be others where you're in shorts, and that's the cool thing about championships. It being rotated around to different venues. You'll have the weather to have to work with you just as much as the racetrack itself. So, yeah, I would like to see Kansas one year maybe be the final race of the season. As you can remember, as I can remember as well, there's been several races at the end of the year that were quite cold. We were even raced in New Hampshire one year for the 9/11 race. They got canceled for 9/11. So, I mean, it's possible. Let's do it. Let's see what it's like. Let's see what that feels like. Your microphone.
You're on mute, Sharon.
I guess it's possible, but fans have to be prepared to be bundled up and ready to weather the cold. I know they do it for football games, but will they do it for the racing? I don't know. I hope so. But yeah, it is going to be a very different race. And maybe it'll have to be even postponed if it's really bad, because here in the Midwest, if we get a bunch of snow, they're not going to be able to race on that racetrack. So it just depends on the situation. I just think they have to be, you know, I like the idea of it throwing a twist into the playoffs. That's why I would like to see it maybe 3 or 4 tracks versus just one track for the championship race. Maybe the first race of the championship could be at Kansas, and then they go to a southern state or something like that, if they change the playoffs to be that type of format. But I think it depends. Maybe the fans are willing to get bundled up and sit in the stands and watch a race in the snow. I don't know, but it definitely would change up the dynamics, and it would be which team can make the adjustments for the conditions on the track, just like football players have to make adjustments when it snows on a football field. So it would make it interesting. I will say that. Anything more you want to say there?
Well, yeah, you both took the thoughts out of my head. Chris referenced the New Hampshire race. As long as it is sunny and dry, from the safety aspect, going to New Hampshire, again, was it a good race? I thought so. Was it the same type of racing you see during the summer months or warm weather? No. And that's where I have the issue, because I know how fans are. They're saying, oh, Kansas is great racing. Put the championship race there. Okay, you put it there. Weather is decent, but it's colder, and the cars don't perform. The tires don't perform the same. And then they get on there and attack and bash it. Well, if you ask for it, you got to accept what it is. So that's my only concern. As far as, if you're a fan and you talked about getting bundled up, like I said, I was bundled up at Atlanta. Do you have the same full sellout crowd? No, you got the dedicated fans, or not smart fans, if you will, that are willing to, from that aspect. The other would be, Sharon, you hit on something of be prepared for the delay. And that would be something I think they would have to look at, of maybe making it a Saturday race so they have Sunday just in case. Or I like what you said, if they go to the 3-race championship round, Kansas being the first one. I kind of like that, if they go to that format, though. So we'll have to wait and see what they decide on that. But like I said, I do think that they've made a case to be in the discussion anyway.
All right, let's talk about big changes in 2026 for the playoffs, because there's been, I guess there's no decision yet, but there has been some discussion about doing exactly what we're not wanting to have happen, and that is going to a full season point system. Now, there might be some points tweaking along the way, but what are your thoughts if they go that drastic with making the changes back to what it was? And I know where you're at, Chris, because you kind of referenced it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you can go first.
Oh, me?
It's your turn.
Where I stand on on changing the format.
Back to the full season.
Yeah, that's so. I just don't see that happening in 2026. Regardless, if they were going to make those kind of significant changes, I think that those would have already been implemented with the NASCAR Cup schedule.
You're right.
They're going to keep
27.
Yeah, they're going to keep an open mind of things, but just like we talked about, just because you got a whole bunch of head burners talking heads that are, oh, this, and this, doesn't necessarily mean that it's the actual best way to go. And NASCAR knows that. Look, after coming off this weekend, I've said it so many times already tonight, like they would be crazy to change the format, because it made everything so much more significant. If you want an example of why the win and you're in works, there you go. That's the perfect example of why win and you're in works. And I've had a lot of fans, negatively believe, oh, this is bad for the sport or whatever, because you got a guy that's 32nd in points who's racing for a championship. But in reality, what I've been open-minded to look at is to think, well, this guy that was 32nd in points, maybe they didn't have the resources there at that race shop that they have at some of these larger race shops. And what better way to catch them up or get them up to speed is to allow them to have a win in your end policy, where now he's not going to finish any worse than 16th in standings. And let me tell you something, there's a big money difference between 16th and 32nd. Okay, there's a whole lot of extra money coming in, right? So now where do you go get that crew chief from? From those extra earnings. Where do you go get that fabricator, that guy that hangs bodies really good? You're going to go and get that guy now because you finished 16th instead of 32nd. So I think in order to keep a level playing field, the win in your end policy is the only way to go, because if not, you're going to have a dominant force of the top, and then you're never going to see some of the lower tier teams ever get a win because they're just going to be outmoneyed. We know what happens when racing series turn toward the money side of things versus keeping it grassroots. It kills competition. And that's exactly what will happen if we go back to another top 35, another format of a 36 race season. As I said before, all of these nostalgia people, oh, it was better this way when it was like this. We didn't race 38 weekends out of the year then either. We only raced 32, I think. 28 to 32 races, sometimes if not even that. So, and what are we going to do? Like playing against football? Are we just going to stop racing August 18th?
People are going to stop watching. I'm telling you.
But are we just going to deal with that? What are we going to do with the Super Bowl? Are we going to allow the NFL just to say, hey, you can't run the Daytona 500 on President's Day weekend anymore because we're going to run the Super Bowl here? At what point do you just say, okay, if you like football, go watch football. But if you're a race fan, tune in with us because we got some cool stuff going on here too. Right?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yep. Jay, I remember points racing. How about you?
Yeah, that's what I don't understand. And Chris used the word nostalgia. Yeah, Moody likes to get on people of, well, back in the good old days, you had the 5 cars finishing on the lead lap back in the good old days. You won by 3 or 4 laps. How is that good racing? That was one car or one team being dominant, which you're complaining about now. So I don't see going backwards like that. Am I okay with them if they tweak it to where, hey, it's a 3-race championship battle or like that? Yes. One thing I heard today, which I thought was kind of interesting, I think it was with Danielle Trotta and Larry McReynolds, somebody called in. If you're really about it being the drivers that are winning consistently or more regularly, make it 12 drivers that get into the playoffs. Because then, so far we haven't had where you got 16 winners. If you win, you're definitely in. If it's the top 12, now you're talking about those that got 32nd place, got to win, so they're eligible. But if you have 12 or more that have wins, now you're talking about you have to have the multiple wins. So I thought that was interesting, at least to throw into the discussion and quiet those people who are against the driver in 32nd win in a race and getting in. But I also would use statistics. SVG, who else got in?
He's got a lot of race wins.
Right. Okay. So, yeah. I gave him the shout out for that. My point is and I hate to pick on him. Now I got to pull up the other one. Hold on a second. That one only shows the 12 that are remaining. Well,
and I think that's a good idea until your favorite driver doesn't get into
the and that goes back
because he's only got one win.
That goes back to, is this all about it's because it's your favorite driver? Exactly. But if you look at Alex Bowman, who got bumped out of the playoffs, again, did these drivers that got 4 or 5 wins or 1 win from down below in points, did Buescher and Alex Bowman outpoint them? They really haven't in these races. So they wouldn't have been in any better position than the 4 that got in and got eliminated. I mean, realistically, of that. So I'm not against it. But like I said, if you wanted to go with the 4, or take away 4 and only go with 12, I can get behind that, because again, I think that those 12 are going to take care of themselves anyway, and you're going to get the same result. I really do.
Well, I do think doing the 12 would allow you to have the 3-race championship round.
And that might play into that. You're right.
And that plays into it. But, and I liked it when it was 12, but I remember they made a provision for Jeff Gordon to make it into the playoffs. Do you remember that? Because he wasn't going to make the playoffs that year.
That was race manipulation, though. It wasn't the term back then, but that was race manipulation already.
Yeah. And yeah, when you get a big name driver that all of a sudden he's not going to make it in, we've got to be prepared to say he didn't make it this year. There's next year. And then, of course, then you get down to the drivers like Denny Hamlin, who might be at the end of their career, where there maybe isn't a next year. So I just think 12 is okay. I don't know, maybe 14. I know where you're coming from with that. I just worry about, I've seen it happen when we had 12. We made exceptions for those drivers to get in. And then you bring up a good example. SVG has 4 wins this season, all on road courses, all on the same track. So he would have a multiple win and he would be in that 12 still. So it doesn't really address it. Plus, I think it might make it more difficult for those lower funded teams to want to be in NASCAR, because they don't get that little perk by being in the playoffs and get that extra exposure. So that would be my one drawback. Well, I guess I got a couple of drawbacks to it, but that would be another drawback that I think might hurt the sport more than it helps it. So, Chris, what's your second
in my
goal?
mind, I mean, look, I've been thinking about that inter-season playoff, how seeding really mattered,
Yes.
how you can bring some of that to the table when we're dealing with who and how to race this 10-race format. Do we put more emphasis on, the 26-race champion? Say we, this is out there. This is an out there type of thought. Say we have an elimination every race instead of every 3 races. Say we take the bottom 4, the 12th through the 13th through 16th places, and we literally have one race where, or a sequence of races where, you're eliminating those guys, like every race you're eliminating one or the other, or even having it in a style where you're basically going to just pull one guy from that 13th through 16th rank and stick them over here. Have like that wild card playoff, 3-race wild card playoff, where you're basically reseeding the top group of guys, like we did in that playoff style, the midseason playoff, and eliminating a couple of the or seeding one of those 4 guys that you're eliminating from, putting them into the next round of the playoffs that actually starts the playoffs. There's so many
Like a
different
Division
dynamics.
1, Division 2.
Right. And keep the top 4 where they're seated, and really play the 5th through 12th card of reseeding those guys, and by giving them a 3-race win play not winning if you're in, but more like what we've seen with the seeding, where it would allow, if you had a good 3-race run there, it would allow them to go maybe from a 12th place up to a 6th place for the final seeding in the final 6 races of the year, or something to that effect. Look, we can play with the format, and we know that we've got 10 races, and we know we're going to crown a regular season champion. I don't know at what point in time that you continue to crown a regular season champion and you not make it significant. Like, we should know who these regular season champions are, if it matters. obviously it doesn't matter because we don't even keep up with it. Do you guys know the last 3 in-season the regular season champions?
Yeah, we
Can you
really
name them
don't.
off the top of your head?
Hold on a sec. William Byron was this year's. Martin Truex was last year's. And I can only.
I'm hearing Tyler Reddick was when.
Oh, you're right. I missed Tyler Reddick. You're right. Last year was Tyler Reddick.
William
the year
Byron
before was
this
Martin
year.
Truex.
Yeah,
you're right. I missed
very
Reddick.
Rarely do we make significance to a regular season champion, and
Okay.
maybe that's where. People have got to realize, like, yeah, we have a regular season champion, and then we have a bonus champion. Like I don't a playoff champion. I don't know. Like baseball puts their banners up, right? They put up their banners of they won the division or they won the pennant, and then they won the World Series. So there's 3 different types of flags that can be raised in their home stadium because those are all significant. Now basketball, you have an in-season playoff championship, and now Cup we have one as well. So, I don't know. I'm all for making changes. I love changes. I love to mix it up a little bit, make it more of a gambling style. I love the idea of elimination races. I want to eliminate somebody every race. That way we're knocking these guys off the deck because what would be cool is to wipe one of these guys out after the first 2 races and then him come out and win 4 races there at the end of the season so we could throw the table upside down, the Monopoly game upside down and say we need to start over all over again and, do something different. Look.
Everybody cheats at Monopoly.
I was going to say, I don't think we want to have that discussion of how we play Monopoly.
I don't like that at all.
Hey, okay. Sometimes I talk too much. I'd much rather hear y'all what y'all feel like, especially with what I've just thrown out there on the table.
There are a couple.
We're thinking too small. I think we're thinking inside this little bitty box that we've got to play with. And in reality, it's a big sandbox, and we can do a whole lot of stuff to make it more entertaining.
Yes.
Good. It's a big old sandbox.
I was going to say, I was jumping the gun there. I don't think you've gotten your chance, Sharon. So go ahead, and I'll get mine on the second go round.
Oh, you're going to skip your turn.
Is it? I thought it was. First. Okay. I thought I already had, but no, Chris, I think you're right. Think outside the box. One of the things that I think they could do, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to every, say, 2 races eliminating a bottom driver. That's an intriguing thought. My thought was, though, you're talking about the regular season champion. It's the fans that don't remember it. The teams certainly do, and they do get a bonus. William Byron got 3 races worth of points. Problem is you can't just take a vacation then and ride it. It's not a buy all the way to the championship, which I don't want to see. So you got to capitalize on it. It's in your bank, but you can't just, like I said, ride it out. One thing I think would be a good idea is increase the bonus points maybe in the playoffs. So you get in those first 3 races. If you win the race, instead of 5 bonus points for the win, it's 10. And increase points position for your per position in the playoff races. So if you get hot in the playoffs, that's the time to get hot. You're actually getting more points and making up those that you may be behind because of the regular season, because you are performing during the playoffs. So I could see that something along those lines. Like you said, of every 2 races eliminating the bottom guy. I'd be okay with discussing that and trying to figure out a format for that. But I think you are right. I think there is a wide range of things that could be done. I would even be okay with a first round bye for the regular season champion. And I don't know that we've seen that. I'd have to think back. I want to say it was Martin Truex that realistically was the regular season champion that was in danger of getting eliminated in the first round. You'd hate to see that. But again, if you won your division and won your pennant, that doesn't mean you can't just not show up. So I don't want to see that either, where they're just giving a bye all the way. I know that one came up once. And again, I think it was Moody, and he was like, no, get out. I don't even want to hear it. I don't think anybody ought to be given the free pass to the championship game.
Well, and I do like the idea of maybe doing like a college football seeding, where you take last year's championship and you put maybe 2 or 3 divisions into, you've got your upper tier, your middle tier, and your lower tier, and those guys are racing, and maybe mid-season, if you have your mid-season champion, and that the champion from the lower tier moves up to the second tier, and the champion from the second tier moves up to the top tier as kind of a wild card. And then, they continue to race for the second half of the season and look for the champion. So I kind of like that idea. I liked the in-season competition that we had this year. I hope we do that again, because I thought that was kind of fun. But I like the idea of dividing it up, because I think that those bottom tier guys need that exposure in order to build their organization. And if they're competing against cars in their division that are kind of similar in their racing capabilities, then I think that you give a chance to get those guys highlighted. They do it in IMSA. You've got all these different manufacturers, and people follow that all the time. You have your champion in this class and your champion in that class. So I think that we could do that in NASCAR. And my fear, though, is that so many fans would say it's so confusing, I can't follow it. So somehow you've got to make it real simple for people to follow. But what gets me is that people follow it when it comes to college football. They follow it in IMSA. They follow it in these other sports. So I don't understand why NASCAR fans can't follow it in racing.
Sharon's going to set me off here.
Uh-oh. But I kind of like that idea. I kind of like the idea of having 3 different divisions and giving them a chance to race for a championship within their division. And maybe taking the top driver mid-season and making them wildcard drivers into the championship and in the next highest division. So what are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, when you look at the top 8 right now, it's hard to argue that those aren't the top 8 drivers for the season. So, if what's the worst thing about this is that you're giving playoff value to teams that maybe would have typically finished 31st, 32nd, 33rd in the standings, maybe even 26th on up, then maybe there's a point to where you take the 13th through 22nd and then you throw them into a 3-race seed leading up to the playoffs so that they have a play into the playoffs.
Exactly.
I mean, if that's your hiccup, if that's, well, I want to trash this whole thing because the 32nd guy has no business racing for a championship in the top 16. Come on, then let's fix that and let's see if we can find somewhere that can make that a little bit easier to handle, an earning of that badge. If you have a 3-race deal coming up on race 24 through the 26th race of the season, and that is specifically for a play-in value to the playoffs, and those guys are either seeded against each other or by value of your best 3 races in that group, then you earn something. What they're saying is you didn't earn that spot just because you won a race at Talladega in April. I get it. I can see that. So let's add something to the mix. When you've got a guy at a local dirt track that's whooping everybody's tail, what do? You go put a bounty on him, okay? So this is no different than putting a bounty on one of these drivers that took care of the win and you're in. They'll have to have a 3-game set. They'll have to have a 3-race set where you have to compete. You have to be on your best. If not, you're going to miss that chance for the playoff. And what that does is it still gives that 21st guy some value, because now all of a sudden he's got something that he can still compete for. I think competing between the middle of the field has always been so much easier, and so much more competition in the 22nd through 32nd places than ever it is up front, right? I mean, most of the side-by-side 3-wide racing comes from the squirrels in the back, right? So there you go. Let's have a race of a race. Let's have a race for the playoffs, a race to get you in. 3-race set, get you those final 4 spots up to 13th through 23rd. So have an elimination factor going on in the regular season, and we've seen this with playoff values and with the play-in tournament with the NBA. At the end of their season, they have a play-in where you can play yourself into the tournament, and they also have a wild card day in baseball where there's just one game where these guys go at it head to head, and whoever wins that game is the wild card. We can do similar shenanigans, as some would say, to keep things interesting and to give more value to what they are saying devalues the product. Let's invest into the devaluation and make it better, instead of just throwing the whole monopoly board upside down and saying, let's go back to something that was broke before we fixed it.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, what did I rile you up about, Jay?
Well, yeah, the fans. You talk about that, and I think maybe that is part of why some fans are wanting to go back to the 36th race full points. But I think back to when they had it at that time, it was 185 points or 175 points for a race win. Then you got 5 points for the leading the lap, 5 more for if you led the most laps. And that was a complaint, supposedly, that it was too complicated. So they simplified it. Okay, there's 40 cars. If you win, you get 40 points. If you got last, you get 1 point, to simplify it. And I remember thinking that at the time of, hey, I can understand this a whole lot better than I can the college football rankings and standings. I mean, so yeah, when you pointed that out, that fans, they're all behind that, but can't figure out the 185 points, for a race win. I thought there was an importance to that. The way it was broke down at the time, 5 points per position if you were in the top 10, 4 points if it was 11th to 20th, and then only 3 points between 21st on back. Because there again, you got more points if you made passes within the top 10, because it's harder, right? I thought that was a good system. I felt like that was rewarding. You pass a car from 30th to 29th, you get the same amount of points that somebody passed from 3rd to 2nd. Come on. But
well, that's why I think the 3 divisions would separate that.
Well, and what Chris was kind of hinting at mentioned of maybe only looking at using 12. Lock in the top 12, 13th through 16th, and anybody else that has a win, you got 3 races, the first round of the playoffs, to then get in and lock horns with the top 12 that have been the top 12 all year long. I got no problem with that type of scenario. I think that would be interesting. So I'm with Chris. I think there are a lot of options you could look at, except going back to a 36 points or 36 race points. Yeah. Don't take that one off the table.
And I've heard a lot of people say that's the worst option, but there's so many people that just seem to be the squeaky wheel on this other thing.
Yeah.
They're the same ones that don't like stage racing. They're the same ones that quit watching when Dale died. They're the same ones that just
still complaining.
Yeah, like, how do you know? Why are you even here if you quit watching when Dale died? I mean, seriously, why are you even paying attention? If I gave up on racing 24 years ago,
I wouldn't be nowhere around.
Definitely wouldn't be commenting on somebody's X thread.
That was it. Well, Chris, that was a show. It was just Sharon and I. Somebody called in, and I think it was to Dave Moody, and said that. Well, I haven't been a fan for 10 years, but I still listen to your talk radio about this sport and wanted to engage in it. And like, If you aren't even a fan and haven't watched in 10 years, why are you engaging in sports talk radio about it? It's like, why are you calling me? Other than to complain about something you don't watch anyway.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, here's the last one, I think. Predictions for the Roval. Jay, you want to go first on this one?
I'll take the first up. I'll take the low-hanging fruit. You got to go through SVG. I mean, until somebody, what can you say?
Well, I'm talking about the eliminations. Who's going to be eliminated?
Oh, okay. Just, whoa. Well,
eliminations.
It still does factor around SVG because he is no longer in the playoffs. So if he wins the race, let's just go with that wild scenario that SVG wins a road course. Like I said, I think Austin Cindric still has a shot at it, but if it becomes a points battle, Ross Chastain and Joey Logano, and neither one of them are superstars, I would say, when it comes to road course racing. But I do think the two behind them, Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, and then Austin Cindric, three. If it's not SVG that wins, I think one of those could win the race and really upset things. If SVG wins, then I think you got to watch the in-race battle between Joey Logano and Ross Chastain, and that includes all the stages because the stage points could be what determines that. I think it'll be interesting. If SVG wins, that points battle between Chastain and Joey Logano, I think is going to be huge. For anybody else, Chase Briscoe at plus 21, it'd have to be he breaks early, and we've seen this twice already this year. You're sitting in your motor coach home hoping that Tyler Reddick or Bubba Wallace don't earn enough points or squeaks in. Outside of that, again, if SVG isn't your winner, then I really think Austin Cindric is the one that really could upset things. Tyler Reddick would be my next pick. Honestly, though, I think we're set of that. Hey, Joey Logano, though, I think Joey Logano is at risk of that. I don't know who I would put in because I think the better road course racers are 11th and 12th versus Bubba Wallace in 10th. But honestly, it seems like Bubba Wallace is kind of having his breakout year. He might be the one that is running second or third, and something happens to Joey and he races his way in on points, but that's a lot of points to make up.
Yeah, it is. Chris?
Yeah, I think Tyler Reddick holds the key to a lot of this. And, he's going through a lot of personal issues at home right now. And there's nothing worse than hearing news that your child of any size is having some health complications. But that can do one or two things for these types of drivers. It can kick them and make them rise up, or it can make them fizzle out real quick. And I think based off of the spirit of 2311, you almost are expecting to see a bounce back. I wouldn't think twice about going and betting all odds on Tyler Reddick to win this weekend, just because of where he races at, the shop that he races in. Those guys, they're going to rally around Tyler Reddick this week. They are. Those shop guys, they're going to take to heart. They have families. They have kids at home. They're going to do their darndest to get Tyler Reddick into victory lane here at the Roval, knowing that he's very capable of that. That's one thing. Some drivers get it, some drivers don't. Tyler Reddick, he can race a road course race, and he's good at it. I see the troops rallying, and I think that Joey Logano kind of is in the wings for this. If Tyler Reddick wins, I almost expect Joey Logano to be eliminated. I know that's probably not as hot of a take as I would want here tonight, but I think that it's definitely those two are going to somehow or another affect each other's outcome.
Okay, yeah. I really think I think Reddick has the best chance. I will say In 22, he finished 8th. In 23, he finished 6th. In 24, he had 11th place. That's Tyler Reddick. Now, Christopher Bell finished 2nd there last year. William Byron 3rd. William Byron in 23 finished 2nd and 3rd and 24th. Kyle Larson is your most recent winner. He's the defending winner. Cindric, you mentioned Cindric. Let me give you his numbers. He finished 21st and 22, 25th and 23, but he did have a 4th place finish in 24. So that's encouraging for Cindric. Chastain. Chastain's got a 37th, a 10th, and a 28th place finish. I wouldn't count on Chastain doing anything there. Logano's numbers at the Roval. Let me see if I can find them.
That's not. I was going to say no, that's not good if you can't find him.
He's got an 18th and 22, a 5th and 23, and an 8th place finish in 24. So it's gonna be interesting. Chris Bushner has some good stats. He has a 6th and 22, a 7th and 23, and an 11th in 24. I told you about Christopher Bell. He won in 22, a 15th and 23, and a 2nd place finish last year. So yeah, it's Kyle Larson, 35th, 13th, and 1. So that's kind of an interesting one. Yeah, those are your top drivers right there. Allmendinger's got some good stats there too. A 4th, a 1st, and a 6th.
Yeah, I was going to say
this is in the next gen era that we're talking about.
Right.
So there's some interesting stats there for these guys. I would say Tyler Reddick, possibly, based on what I'm looking at here. He could possibly do it. He ranks a little bit higher than Joey Logano. So, yeah, Shane Van Gisbergen only has the one race, and that's last year. So, but I think Allmendinger is another one to think about. He could end up doing something this weekend too, and he's another non-playoff guy. So we'll see what happens, but I think we could see an upset this weekend.
I want to bring in add to Chris's thought there, which, and I agree with it, Chris. I think you're right. I think that team really could rally with him. I think it's two sides, whether it's a playoff driver that wins the race versus a non-playoff driver, and then it becomes about the points, like you mentioned with Joey Logano. But let's go with the team rallying 23-11 around Tyler Reddick. The black helicopter coming in, though, is he says, hey, I want to race. I'm worthy of a chartered team contract. I'm leaving 23-11 after this year because my team owner wrecks his own cars and announces he's going somewhere else next year.
Yeah, what a way to cause a morale problem. Yeah. Going to be interesting. Okay, let me see. I know we're coming up on some late hour here. CC moves. We got Randall Burnett leaving Kyle Busch and moving over to, where is he moving to? All of a sudden,
Trackhouse Racing with Connor Zilisch.
Oh, that's right. He's going over with Trackhouse Racing with Connor Zilisch. Rodney Childers is going to Junior Motorsports to manage the #1 team that will be split. And we'll kind of tie these two together. It's going to be split between Connor Zilisch and Carson Kvapil next season. And then Chris Rice was promoted to CEO of Colleague Racing, which was interesting. And then we might as well throw this in too. Layne Riggs is back in 2026 with Front Row Motorsports #34 team. So your thoughts about all of these silly season things going on?
You up, Chris?
Yeah, it's good to know that Front Row Motorsports is going to stick around after they lose their Cup team, based off of everybody's theories for that lawsuit. Chris Rice, we already thought you were the head honcho. What are you talking about? So You just, what was your other position? I don't really know. And for the crew chief's moves, is anybody else wondering that maybe Rodney Childers to Junior Motorsports is not a signal of maybe a future Cup team? And why did Carson Kvapil only get enough money to race a partial schedule in the one car? Those are all questions that I have. So, I think we hit with the crew chief going to track house last week. I think that was already in motion. So I'm not going to really comment to that. I don't have anything new to bring to the table, but the Carson Kvapil partial schedule is something that sticks out the most. And then Rodney Childers to Junior Motorsports. I understand that, like we all talked that he would be a great position, some kind of leadership position, as we've seen with maybe a Greg Zipadelli in the later part of his career, Chad Knaus, and so on and so forth. Rodney Childers, I think, still has a lot left in his tank. That's a building ground for where I would want to start if I was going to bring a Cup team up next season and the season thereafter, giving Rodney Childers a chance to kind of build a Cup shop into his own image. That's who I would definitely want there. So I don't know, man. I'm hearing some signals. Maybe this is that the little smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. With Childers going to Dale Junior Motorsports. Do you guys think that could be Italian?
Jay?
I hate to get on the helicopter with Chris, but I had hopes. Honestly, I really thought from what I had heard, he might be the one to tie in with Colleague and starting the Ram deal in the Truck Series, and thus then moving over to Cup with Dodge when they came. And again, I don't know that I've heard anything directly from him when it comes to the Xfinity. Not to say they're not a full-time job, but I don't think it's at the same level as the Cup Series. So I thought maybe the time away with his family, he felt like the Xfinity Series gave him that still fill the racing need, but not take away from his family as much as the Cup side. I don't know that. Like I said, that's my own thought on that. But Chris, you got a great point of, we have heard the rumors of Dale Junior Motorsports going Cup racing for several years, especially with the possible availability of charters in the future, that may be a key piece they're trying to get in place now in preparation for. So we'll have to wait and see. It did kind of surprise me. I would have thought he would have had more options, but like I said, maybe he didn't want it at the Cup level, or like you said, this is leading to back to the Cup down the road. I would have liked him with Ram if that were the case, but didn't happen. The unfortunate thing here, and it's been said for several years, especially here at Fan4Racing, not Connor Zilisch, Carson Kvapil. Unfortunately, talent isn't enough in this day and age. And I did have the Xfinity points. I think he's still 6th in points, but he doesn't have the win. It's about money. I mean, it really is. And it's sad because yes, he's a rookie, he's in the playoffs, but Connor Zilisch as a rookie is leading the points and just dominating the series, gets all the attention. Here we go. He is currently 7th in points. So he's still in it, but again, just isn't getting the attention and isn't winning the races. And unfortunately, somebody's got to pay the bills, and having Connor Zilisch come back and do part-time with him, I hope that it's an opportunity for him to continue to grow, especially getting to work with Rodney Childers, and maybe that gets him wins and gets him some sponsorship attention, and he can come back and be full-time, because I think he's got the talent.
Yeah, I like it. Oh, go ahead.
The other one and I'm not trying to knock on the guy, Randall Burnett you got Connor Zilisch coming up to the Cup Series. I don't know that Randall Burnett is the crew chief I would have went after. I don't know if there's a relationship between the two of them. We had heard the rumor at that time. It was a very strong rumor, though, that he was leaving Kyle Busch and Richard Childress Racing. But like I said, bringing in what the possible greatest talent we've ever seen, I'll use that word, that's an opinion, but Connor Zilisch, the rising star anyway. And I say that kind of jokingly, he is a very good talent, no doubt. I don't know if Randall Burnett is the crew chief that I would have sought after. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not taking anything away from him as a crew chief. Unfortunately, obviously this year, him and Kyle Busch, it just didn't work for whatever reason. So I'm not putting that on either one of them. I think it's an organization as a whole, we've talked about. But like I said, he would not have been my number one crew chief to go after for Connor Zilisch. I'd have gone after Rodney Childers.
Well, and I got to wonder who they're going to replace him with. Have they said who's the replacement?
No, I haven't seen anything on that.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that he's going to be working with Randall Burnett in the Cup Series and with Rodney Childress in the Xfinity Series. I think that's a little strange. And I know there's an alliance there, but, and I guess I see this as more of a developmental thing, developing these two drivers to one day move up to the Cup Series, whether that be with Junior Motorsports or with Trackhouse Racing. We'll have to kind of wait and see how that plays out. But Jay brings up a good point that Carson doesn't have any wins yet this season in the Xfinity Series. And you're pairing him up with the driver who's got the most wins in that series. So I think that there's a developmental opportunity here that they're looking at. And maybe Rodney Childress is the guy to make that development happen. He's used to working with different drivers and dealing with different personalities. Not that I think there's any personality problems here with either one of those drivers. But I just thought that was kind of interesting that they're asking Connor to work with two different crew chiefs here. Chris Rice going up, yeah, he's already running things. He might as well be the CEO. But I'm anxious to find out who they're going to put in his place. I've been really using up my earbuds today, and I'm out of charge now. But I just am interested. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Hear you loud
Can
and
you
clear.
say something? Okay.
Yeah, you're still loud and clear.
Okay. I just think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And yeah, I thought it was interesting that they made the announcement already that Layne Riggs is back for next season at FRM No Motorsports in that number 34. I guess they're pretty optimistic about what's going to happen with this lawsuit. So again, we'll see how it all plays out. It's kind of some interesting announcements here.
Well, that's it. That's in the truck series, though.
That is in the truck series. Has nothing to do, I guess, with the Chargers. So
yeah,
total different thing, I guess. You're right.
I can kind of see the Rodney Childers with Carson Kvapil and Connor Zilisch, because you're going to, I mean, look, if I was going to get in anybody's race car, it would be Connor Zilisch, because obviously he's piloted to 9 wins this season. So being that Carson can get into that seat and feel some of the setup that Connor Zilisch had, you've got a great crew chief with Rodney Childers. You'll be able to size up real quick whether or not Carson might be just missing a tad bit of talent, or maybe money. Maybe money really is the issue. And if money is the issue, if he puts forth a great effort in that car, and that car can be just as dominant when he's in the cockpit versus Connor Zilisch, the money won't have any problem rolling in, and it'll just be a year that we think about, well, he had to prove himself to get back to where, he's back, in the seat full time. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think that the organization is betting on the fact that Carson is good enough, and that's why they want to try him in a part-time schedule in this car with Rodney Childers as the crew chief to basically kind of pilot Carson's career. Look, you know, we've seen it with Harrison Burton, we've seen it with Jeb Burton, some of these other guys that you know, their parents were racers, and they haven't necessarily fared too well. But then you have a Ryan Blaney, who's a Cup champion. His father definitely wasn't a Cup champion. He was a back marker driver through most of his career. So, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I want to get the guy to get a fair shot. And this, I think, is the fairest shot that he'll get being part-time. We've seen what Ryan Preece did in a part-time schedule at Joe Gibbs, right? It kept him relevant. It kept him in a good enough car. He could have went and raced a full-time schedule with a part-time team, you know,
Right.
but instead he went part-time with a full-time team, and it worked out for Ryan Preece in the end. So I think Carson is kind of following that trajectory there.
There you go.
And
I
that
like
is
pairing him up with the winningest driver in the series. So.
Right. Yeah, I think there is value to it. It's one of those you got to take it as it is, of maximize that opportunity. Like you said, that was a great example, Chris, of Ryan Preece with that, and hope it does work out long term. The only one that I got to add to that I didn't mention was Chris Rice. And I say this all the time. What job titles don't mean nothing to me. He was the president. Now he's the CEO. I don't know what that changes. I really don't, you know, like you both said it. He's pretty much the one of the face running the program. The fact that they are moving into the truck series and kind of heading that up, again, I assume it has more of a broader across the multi-platform then, but I really don't know. I think he's the one running that program, and I think he's a good one to move into a position like that because, yeah.
He is the face of Colleague Racing and running the day-to-day operations. But at some point, he might have to step back and take that broader view and bring in other people to take care of the day-to-day. Matt Colleague. Matt Colleague, yeah, thank you. I don't know why I said Claude. Matt Colleague is taking care of business that is funding that organization. So it makes sense to me that he brought in Chris Rice to kind of be the operational guy. Okay, I think that pretty much closes it up. So let's go around the table here, unless you guys have something else.
The only thing I feel like we may have missed on is the several big brass members of NASCAR have been unexpectedly let go, including the race director and another.
Rizan, can't think of his last name.
Yeah. And you just kind of wonder what those moves are, if they maybe are just typical cutting the fat, trimming the fat, or if this is deeper and something that's on down the road. Maybe it's political, maybe it's not. I'm not sure, but it's very strange to see this much brass movement coming out of the upper echelons of NASCAR management. So something's going on up there. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of gets leaked to the media as we get closer to this December 1st. And maybe somebody had some negative thoughts or reactions to that, and it could have cost them their jobs. I'm not sure. It just seems mighty strange that NASCAR's moved off of two prominent members in the last several weeks, and most of the time, where there's smoke, there's fire. I don't know if you guys had anything to say to that. I don't even have their names in front of me, but I did find that to be unusual. That two upper echelons in the NASCAR management have been let go. So. I think.
Okay, Jay.
Sharon.
I got nothing to say. I saw on the race director, and again, I think people get too wrapped up in social media. I don't think that was appropriate. But there were some things throughout the year that I was definitely vocal on, that I think some things, calls that were made. But I also saw where it said it wasn't performance-based. So, and again, whether it ties into the lawsuit, I don't know. And honestly, I don't care. Again, I don't want the race director job, so I pity whoever does get it, has to deal with it. Chris, you know that as far as being at a local dirt track, I always said I'll help a track out any way I can, if that's selling tickets, announcing, whatever, but it will not be race director. I want no part of that.
Yeah, according to this article that I'm reading at Motorsport, they're saying it is not performance related, but there's no replacement that's been named to fill the vacancy. He held the title of managing director for competition operations and is no longer employed by NASCAR. So I guess in 2022, Hamilton became the first Black race director to officiate the Daytona 500, succeeding Tim Berman in that role. He worked as race director in Cup Series race for the very first in 2018 when he called the July event at the Pocono Raceway. But, you know, if you think about it, there have been some bad calls this year. And I don't know if he was responsible for some of those calls. Let's see, over the years, the upstate New York native and graduate of Ithaca College oversaw NASCAR's Drive for Diversity program, pit crew development, and pro iRacing NASCAR divisions, as well as serving in the role of race director.
That's right. I remember that now.
He was also one of the critical individuals involved in developing the annual NASCAR schedule, including new venues for the sport's expansion. He held the office of title of managing director for competition operations, and he first worked for the sanctioning body as an intern in 2012, but returned in 2016, where he has since taken on various roles. And then I've already outlined those various roles. So there have been some bad calls this year that NASCAR has been put under the fire about. So I don't know if maybe it's not performance related, though, they're saying. So it's interesting.
The old vote of confidence.
Yeah.
All right,
Who
y'all.
knows?
I'm ready.
We may never know.
Right.
And that's one of those, honestly, I don't need to. You know, Sharon, you talk about it. What are the facts? He's no longer employed by NASCAR. Why? Don't know. Doesn't affect me. I mean, it really doesn't. I don't need to know. I don't want to know. And I don't want to engage with those that are projecting or speculating as to why, because that's just gets out of hand, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I hear Chris's concern, though, that there's been a number of people and kind of movement within the organization making, what was the commissioner? They made, I can't think of his name now. That's because it's getting late and I'm getting
Steve Phelps.
Steve Phelps, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Commissioner is in his role. And we've seen him make some comments here and there, too, about what's going on and the state of the business kind of thing. So, you know, maybe it's for the better, right? Who knows? But, and maybe they have somebody in mind to take that role over, you know, but with 6 races left, it seems like we need that guy kind of in place.
Must have been a hot email.
Yeah, kind of odd that they're causing him to leave right away. Okay, anything else?
Cut it out. Let's go.
Okay, let's do our roundtable. Jay, you get to go first this time.
All right. Well, you can follow me on Facebook, Michael Hoosman, MoparMJ8, at Instagram and X. And Jackson Motor Speedway is done for the season. We had our final race of the season this past weekend. So we're looking forward to what's happening at the House of Hook. Why not Motorsports Park, Chris?
Yep, 24th.
And do you have I was going to say, you got the dates this time?
Yeah, it's the 23rd through the 25th. I was right. It was the 24th and 25th, 23rd through the 25th. So I didn't get that wrong last week. I am the official My Race Pass points champion for Jackson Motor Speedway. I've got Hattiesburg. They have one more race to go, and I've got Magnolia with one more race to go, and I'll have the trifecta. Unfortunately, I'm about 60 points behind my son, that Why Not kid, at Why Not. So I may actually not win the championship at my own home track this
I was
year.
going to say, can't even win at home, huh?
But I can win everywhere else. I think I'll also take Mitchell before the end of the year as well. So you can find me at Chris Creighton Yellow Caution Flag on Facebook and YouTube. You can find this on Twitter, or X, I should say, and TikTok and Instagram at Flag of Caution. You can find me here on Monday nights on Fan4Racing Radio. I do appreciate the opportunity to share my crazy opinions
We love
right
it.
here in this group. So I'm very thankful for you, Miss Sharon. You've kept my streak alive. I've been doing podcasts since 2013, and this season I would have gone the whole year without talking racing. And thanks for the opportunity to give me one more season to talk about what I love, and that's NASCAR and racing and crazy old opinions, black helicopters, and all the others. I know a lot of people don't get on the bandwagon, but they will tell you that I can come up with some crazy stuff. But at the end, a lot of it is just out thinking outside the box, and that's what I like
Yep.
to do. And I love to ask questions. That's the one thing that I think is the most important value of our job, all three of us, and whatever we're doing,
Absolutely.
is knowing that any question asked is a great question. And so that's where you learn. And so we use this.
Absolutely.
I don't get mad at you guys. I hope y'all don't get mad at me when we pressure each other into these
We might get riled up,
opinions.
but we don't get mad.
Right. I would never get mad at you because you have your personal opinion. I think we've seen enough of that in the real world where people
Yes.
don't respect other people's opinions. I love you. I respect you. I may disagree with you, and I think that
Just don't agree with you. That's right.
that's where we stand here, and I appreciate that opportunity to be on that kind of platform. I think that in this day and age, it's very hard to find these types of platforms where it's okay to disagree and it's okay to have a difference of opinion. And I value that, and that's what keeps me coming back week in, week out, is the fact that we are given that space here at Fan4Racing.
How
Outside
are
of
you
that, you can
doing?
find. Huh?
How are you doing in Taz's fantasy thing?
So when the reseeding happened, I fell all the way to fifth. I am proud to say that after this week, I have made my way back to third, and I am 17 points off the heels of Taz and a great friend of ours, a lady that's been around a long time, a lady of your image, Miss Lee. She was the mama bear of the 110 racing family. She has had the worst of luck in all this fantasy, in all these years of doing fantasy racing. She's had the worst of luck. And somehow or another, with the reseeding and all, she's gone on this absolute tear, and she's whooping us by about 40 something points.
Whoa.
So I'm not on. I'm gonna race it all the way to the end, but a little part of me is on the Miss Lee bandwagon that she's able to pull it off. Because if anybody's had the worst of luck in this fantasy stuff, it's been her. Now last year, I was on the heels of Taz, and Alex Bowman got thrown out of a race, and Joey
Yeah.
Logano got put in, and that was my pick for the weekend.
Oh
And so
no.
I went from leading the train to outside the box looking in. So look, it's been a cool ride to go from the trunk up to mid pack, and hopefully I can clip those heels there pretty fast with Taz Taylor and Miss Lee, and go ahead and secure that championship as well. But all in all, it's for fun. And look, I'm knee deep in fantasy football as well. I've got 6 leagues there that I
Oof.
do. So it's all about some fantasy, man. I love it, y'all. So
Oh man.
that's where you can find me. Of course, don't forget the Fall Classic. It's the 31st annual Coors Light Fall Classic. Practice on Thursday, the 24th. The 23rd, and then we'll be racing full programs on the 24th and the 25th. Not no qualify and heat race on Friday and racing on Saturday. Baby, we gonna race it all on Friday and Saturday night. I think it's the purse is paying out the same both nights for all of the support classes. And I believe it's a $20,000 to win payday Saturday night with the super late models in the 31st annual Coors Light Fall Classic. So y'all come on down, Miss Sharon. Let's show you a good time. I'll throw you in the VIP room, and show you what dirt track racing at the House of Hook is all about.
All right. I'll have to think about that. Okay, Jay, Taz was doing the playoff fantasy game. I said maybe Jay will do our full season fantasy game. Are you up for that next season?
I got for the full season.
Yeah, well, for the regular season.
Oh yeah, we can do that again. Yeah, I got no problem with that.
Okay. And then Taz is going to have to come up with something a little different because I can't participate in his.
Right.
As a media member, I can't participate in those fantasy things with NASCAR.
No. And no, we have our own league. Yeah, you're more than welcome to participate in our own league.
Okay, well, next season I'll do that.
We have our own league and our own way of doing points and everything like that. And it's been more simplified over the years. Taz has done a really good job, but he's been the head front on our fantasy league for the last several years. As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, we had as many as 16 players, 2 different divisions. But that was a lot of work for Taz, and so he kind of simplified it this year and kicked all the extra people out, and it was just within the 110 Racing family. But look, Taz he's really got it figured out, and kudos to him for being the brainstorm behind our fantasy racing league.
Okay, Jay.
I already gave my handles. If we're talking about the fantasy, I'll have to look into that. I know I've done it here for Fan4Racing, and I can vouch for that and give a shout out to Taz because just doing one league, handling that, I think we had 8 that year, 8 or 9.
8.
Yeah. So it can be time consuming, but it was a lot of fun.
Now I must be. Did you talk about your track?
Yeah, that's why I said I let into Chris's because, like I said, we wrapped up, and I know they got their final one. Yeah,
that's right. You did it first. I am falling asleep. Okay. I'm Fan4Racing site on Twitter, and then Fan4Racing blog and radio on Facebook, as well as our website, fan4racing.com. We do have the interview tomorrow. Jay and I are going to sit down with Eric Johnson Jr. and talk with him about his ARCA West season. We've had a couple of interviews, Jan Quackenbush from Jan's Racing and then Chase Howard, who is just getting his feet wet in the ARCA series. We talked with him recently as well. So check out our interviews. I know Sal's working on an interview that's not confirmed yet, but we may have another interview this week as well. So stay tuned for that. Jay and I will be back with our previews for the 4 races that are taking place this weekend at the Roval with NASCAR's Top 3 Series. And then the ARCA Menards Series has their season finale this weekend at Toledo Speedway. I believe Brendan McQueen just has to start the race and he'll be the champion for the ARCA Menards Series. And we'll have to see who finishes 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and so on. But a lot going on here. And then Friday, Taz and I will do the fantasy report to help you with your fantasy picks. And he's been beating the pants off of me there. So, so we'll see what happens this week. I think he beat me again this week. So we'll see what happens. But you have to tune in, and we have a lot of fun with it. And then, of course, we'll be back next Monday night with our Hot Topic Sound Off and all of our reviews from the weekend of racing. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate you guys. And I appreciate everybody who tunes in to listen to our bantering back and forth here. And because we have a lot of fun doing it. We hope you have a lot of fun listening. I know I might, for the first time, I might go in and edit because I think we've got some dead air space on our show here tonight. And I've got to go back and kind of fix that up a little bit. But other than that, I usually don't edit these. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you on the next go around here.
Bye.
All right. Good night.
Good night.